Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax. This one is Lily. And today we are talking about finding yourself, how it's never too late to change your label. It's okay not to accept a label. It's okay just to be you, when someone asks like, oh, how do you identify? And you just say, oh, as myself, I don't have a label or a specific thing. This is primarily inspired by a clip of Shawn Mendes that is circulating quite a lot right now, where he's essentially talking about how he was sort of pigeonholed and people insulted him, or not really insulted him, but they called him gay from such a young age that he was never actually able to find himself or identify the way he wants to. And he felt like he had to almost like prove everyone wrong, or just felt very intrusive. Like these comments and these thoughts felt very intrusive to him and really prevented him from being able to identify the way that he naturally would if he were just left in a vacuum and left to discover himself, those kinds of things. So it got me thinking about my own experience, and I don't want to make this all about me, but I will share my thoughts on this whole idea, this idea of coming out, this idea of labeling yourself, this idea of changing labels, and I don't know, maybe just provide a bit of background to this, because I feel like if you're in the LGBT community, you're probably a veteran at coming out, labeling yourself, self-identifying, those sorts of things. You've probably done it your entire life. You have probably had to pass as straight, or attempt to deal with bullying that comes with being gay, bullying that comes with being different or queer, or not the status or the norm. So that's what we're talking about today. My own experience, and I've said this before, but I didn't know I was gay until much later on, like 19, 18 years old. I didn't know anything. At first I thought I was asexual. I wasn't really into anybody. I was bullied pretty hard in elementary school and middle school for being gay. I'm also on the autism spectrum, so I tend to be a little, people often mistake it for OCD or some kind of compulsion or particularity, but it doesn't take long for someone to be in a room with me to realize that I'm not quite the normal stereotype, and that's totally fine. I like it. I prefer it this way. But as a result, I was bullied quite a lot. I was called gay a lot as a kid, and I didn't even know what that was. I was really unsure about it. I live in a really rural part of the world where, especially 10, 15 years ago, being called gay was a big insult. It was really, really rude and derogatory. There were some very harsh and strong stereotypes that existed out there. I had many family members who viewed being homosexual as a real no-no, no, you don't do that. Thankfully, all of this has changed dramatically since I was a kid. But nonetheless, it had this real strong impression on me that I can be anything I want in the world except gay. And I don't know if this contributed to my confusion. And when you talk to most gay people, they will often tell you that they knew when they were 4 years old or 6 years old or 8 years old. But generally, from my experience anyway, most gay people knew that they were gay from a very young age. And I genuinely did not have this. It took me a long time. I was basically a fully formed adult by the time I realized oh, I think I might like guys. And I think that was probably a result of all of the negativity, all of the people telling me I am this thing, because it's a pretty audacious and crazy thing when someone tells you something very deep and personal about yourself that you don't even fully know yet. When you are called gay as a 11-year-old, it's really hard to deal with that, especially if you are and if you know it. And I know several of my friends who are gay were bullied and they knew about it, and they were hiding in the closet even more, and it made them dislike themselves even more because they had all these strangers telling them this truth and framing it in such a negative way. And how do you come to terms with that? How do you come out of a closet when everyone's throwing rocks at the closet waiting for you to come out? it's a pretty dangerous and difficult situation to be in. And to sort of bring it back to the Shawn Mendes experience, since the time that he was probably 12 years old, there was speculation about his voice, his mannerisms, the singing, so much of it from the very early on. I'm a longtime fan from the MagCon days, so I've been following Shawn Mendes' story since I was like, we're the same age. So it's quite interesting to kind of watch this progression. And from day one of public spotlight, there were so many people who had this speculation like, oh, like he's gay, like just come out of the closet already. And especially being in a public spotlight, and the amount of public spotlight that I'm in is not even the same as Shawn. I mean, he is a international celebrity, but I can tell you that the speculation and rumors and everything just from my small little corner of the world is very intense. So I can't even imagine what it would be like for someone with millions of followers and, you know, chart-stopping records and all of that kind of stuff. So while you're trying to come to terms with yourself, you're also dealing with the public spotlight, scrutiny, and even if you don't have the public spotlight and scrutiny, you're dealing with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your friends of friends, distant family, people you see out on the street, in the grocery store. Like, you are still a creature of the public. You still exist in the context. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? No, sorry. But in all seriousness, that kind of difficulty of framing yourself and coming to terms with your own identity can be so construed and conflated and confusing, especially when you factor in these other people. When you factor in the other people who say things or say things about you, not even to your face, but behind your face, there are so many factors that you have to deal with and grapple with when it comes to your own personal identity. And like I said, my identity was definitely shaped by the people around me, the bullying I had, who I am innately. So there were a lot of contributing factors to sort of my confusion. And when I did come out, I initially said that I was bisexual, and you'll often see this. And I'm going to go over this whole thing. So before you start typing in comments about bi erasure or biphobia, wait. So initially I came out as bisexual, and you will often see, especially young gay men, come out as bisexual because it serves as a bridge to sort of bridge the divide of like, no, I still like girls, but, you know, I'm leaving possibility open to meet a guy. And I think what's happening now is you're seeing a lot of gay men, a lot of gender queer kind of people, queer in general, people sort of returning to that bi label after being gay for a long time, because it actually fits the narrative and it fits who they are way more beautifully and succinctly than just the standard gay label. So when I first came out as gay, as bisexual, I had just started like feeling feelings for guys and for girls at the same time. But I got into a relationship with a guy very, very early on after coming out. And I was like, oh, well, this is me now. Like, this is perfect. I transitioned to being gay. I was like, no, I'm gay. This is fine. This is who I am. It's really comfortable here. I'm good. And it's been 5-6 years since I was in that relationship. And in that time, I've had relationships and I've had love affairs, whatever you want to call them, with both guys and girls. But I've always just said I'm gay, because I find that having that like flip-flop or that wishy-washiness, people are really hesitant to accept you, and people are really hesitant to give you any credit or merit. So if you come out, you can come out as bi, and then you can change your mind to be gay, but after that you just must be gay. Like that's sort of the standard narrative, or it's kind of the commonality. Everyone just expects you. No one really expects a gay person to come out as something different. You know, they think, oh, that's the final thing. You're in your final form. You're fully evolved, whatever you want to call it, and you're supposed to stay there. But sexuality and your labels don't actually work that way. We talk about it being a spectrum in so many ways, but we don't talk about us being able to move along that spectrum or discover new things about ourselves, things like that. And I think this is exactly where Shawn Mendes finds himself. And funnily enough, it's kind of where I find myself as well. It can be really difficult when people view you as this one thing, you know, oh, he's the singer who dated Camila Cabello. That's it. And so trying to like change that narrative or let people see a new side of you or a side that you didn't know about yourself before can be really scary. It can be really detrimental. You can have haters that show up because now you don't identify as the thing that made you famous or the thing that makes you well known as a person or whatever it might be. And I think that's a real shame because we're trying to create this whole system of like understanding and compassion and being sympathetic to people and understanding that people change and grow and multiply and evolve and devolve and do it all. So it can be really frustrating and struggling and difficult and a struggle for people to not so much backtrack, but to change the label to something that is different. And for a long time, I have identified as gay, I've identified as bisexual, I have sort of gone back and forth between these things. I think in all honesty, I would just call myself like bisexual, or I just call myself Jack. You know, I get really exhausted with the whole labeling and, you know, you can say this, they can say that, but you can't say that and they can't say this. It gets really confusing and difficult just because of the labels you identify as and of the categories and the camps that you're in. And I think we are potentially getting to a point where people kind of care a lot less about this. It's been interesting watching the reaction to some of the comments Shawn Mendes has said. I will have to caveat this, like Shawn Mendes has not come out, Shawn Mendes has not said anything like that. He has just talked about the difficulty he experienced growing up with people speculating about his sexuality and trying to guess or force a confession or break the mold or act the mold. And that's kind of what's inspired this. Like, I'm not saying like Shawn Mendes is gay, Shawn Mendes is this or that. The whole point of him talking about this is to say that the speculation and the vitriol and the negativity around his situation growing up was very toxic and has impacted his ability to see himself and his ability to have some kind of like concrete identity in mind for himself, has been seriously impacted by all of this in a negative way. And so I just want to caveat that quickly and just say, like, don't speculate, don't imagine that he's going to come out with a rainbow flag or whatever, because that's missing the entire point of what he's talking about, you know, identity and how it shapes you and how other people shape your identity. That's the problem. That's the issue. So I guess what I'm basically saying is that identity is really complex, which is super, super basic. Sorry for wasting 13 minutes of your life. But in all honesty, your identity is a super complex thing. If you can prevent other people from having an opinion or an effect on how you view yourself, you should view yourself from the inside, hopefully positively, hopefully in a growth mindset of you're always getting better, you're always improving, experiencing life, becoming more wise and compassionate and beautiful human being inside and out. That's how you should view yourself. And the idea of labeling yourself, if a label really helps you, if being called whatever really benefits your worldview, makes you get up in the morning and you're super happy to be a father or whatever you want, like whatever your label is, if that label works for you, awesome, by all means, great. But if you have a problem with a label, feel free to drop it. Feel free to forget it. Feel free to stop responding to people when they call you by that label. When they call you by gay, you know, short, blonde, blue-eyed, like whatever label that you don't like, even if it's factually accurate, if it's objectively or subjectively inaccurate, you don't have to ascribe a label to yourself that you don't want. And you don't have to let society or other people ascribe those labels to you either. That's what I'm saying. I hope this makes sense. I hope this was an interesting exploration of these whole labeling, because it's a huge thing in the LGBT community. It's a huge thing in the like fandoms of television shows and movies, and how we see ourselves as like Marvel people, or no, I like DC comics, or I like Wonder Woman and Batman and Spider-Man and all of those things. You get to identify how you want to identify, and if you don't want to identify by something, you don't have to. You can just say, no, you know what, I'm just me. This is what I do. This is what I like. I'm attracted to people that I get a good interest in, a good vibe in. I don't care about their labels or their objective reality. You know, you don't have to ascribe value to things you don't care about. So that is it from me. That is it from Lily. Yeah. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.